Good question. What is rFLR or reward flare? Floor Network came out with this article last week, and a lot of people don't really know about it. Everybody just, talks about flare when you get rewards for staking and delegating, but rFLR is a little bit different, right? So you have the P chain and the C chain. The P chain is for staking, and C chain is for wrapping your flare for delegating. So we'll get into this a little bit different because this is getting into their DeFi system and to try to incentivize using Dapps and get into the ecosystem more for some liquidity and try to build that going. So reward flare or rFLR is a core part of the growing DeFi ecosystem that rewards and incentivizes participation. It's developed to build deep liquidity for multiple digital assets on the DeFi dApps that operate on Flare. There's different yield strategies available. The Flare metrics dashboard, I got those open here. So pretty interesting here. You can see the different things on here from the Flare time series Oracle, which video we put up yesterday talks about version 2 that was just updated to speed that up. Has goes through all the different things you got going here and all your different providers, what their fees are, their availability rates, what the reward rates are. I wouldn't really worry when you look at these. I don't worry about the fee too much because the more, I want to say entrenched, but the more reputable ones are going to be no less than 10%. I usually see about 15%, 15 to 20%. What you want to look at is reward rate. Obviously, Bifrost Wall is the largest holder, which is not surprising. But if you go to the rate and sort by that, you can see that 01 FTSCO SO is 20% fee, but look at that high reward rate. RXOX, I've actually delegated them before. EDP FTSO, I've used them before, no issues. So it's a great way to go look through the different providers. And when you go to Flare Fias, actually, I'm delegated to them right now. But Flare Beacon I've used also before. Solaris, between the different epochs and when I got locked up, I always refresh this every time I go to restake. And probably about once a week, I look at that when I'm delegating, just see updates, see what's moving. But you look at that, you look at your DeFi, you see the supercharged products that have some of the more highly incentivized one. We got huge APR rates. Like if you're going to do provide some liquidity for these different pool yields, like wrapped Ether and USDC, you get an APR of 119%, 50%. I mean, these are all massive double digits. I obviously saw the triple digit one for pool yields. But the thing, if just reminder, I mean, not financial advice, but when you're doing this, you got to be very careful when you're providing liquidity on pool yields because you need to provide both assets you're doing here. So you got to provide both wrapped Ether and also USDC. You don't want to provide one and not the other, or an imbalance of the two, because that can really skew what your reward rates are going to be, and you can actually lose money. So you always got to be very careful when you do that. Make sure you know what you're doing, do all your research, and take a look at that. So NFTs, you look at the calendars and rankings, validators and news. So the Flare metric site, great site to know, and you can easily Google it if you can't remember. It's just flaremetrics.io. Always look your providers on there. But so let's get into that for that dashboard. So you always have the most up-to-date information so what you can do to earn rewards, right? So don't want to just put your floor to work and make sure you know what you're doing with it, how much you're going to expect to get back. So you put it to get the best return for your bang for your buck. So how does the rewards flare rFLR work? It's distributed monthly by the Flare Emissions Committee in order to increase liquidity in Flare's DeFi ecosystem and incentivize participation on Flare. The missions are allocated monthly by the committee to the participating dApps, who then distribute the rewards to users who are participating in their incentivized on-chain activities. Eligible users will accrue reward Flare rewards monthly, which will be claimed directly through the Flare portal, and they'll vest over a 12-month period. So which dApps can be used to explore and earn rewards? As we get in here to earning reward Flare. So there's selection criteria for eligible dApps prioritizes DeFi protocols and to track which liquidity pools and lending protocols are incentivized by the program, referred to the Flare metrics. So obviously, the ones that get the higher APY are the ones you're going to want to look at, obviously. But there's some big ones. I think it goes into it here. So here's a screenshot of the Flare metrics page that we already looked at. So really interesting. Some ones even, excuse me, I've been battling a cold. So Blaze Swap, if you're familiar with Uniswap, very similar. Uh, for your different liquidity pools, Kinetic for your borrow and lending platform, SparkDex, another one for liquidity for doing swaps and different things. And Scepter is liquid staking platform. And actually, I've done some with Scepter on there. It's actually pretty interesting. Essentially, you provide your your wrap floor, you're staking with them. So instead of staking your own floor, you're providing to them, they stake it, so they take a 10% fee. So say you get, say, 10,000 um, flare from your monthly flare drop, right? They take 10% of that, and they take 10% of the normal staking rewards that you'd get. But the great thing about it is you don't have to go in there, auto claim and everything else. It's just going to be auto generated for you. But what they do instead, you get S Flare or Scepter Flare, or a stake version of Flare not response. You received it in kind. So hey, you provide Rat Flare, in exchange you get S Flare. So you get the rewards from your liquid staked, your Rat Flare with Scepter. You get your normal rewards minus the fees from Scepter. Then you also get in exchange your staked version of Flare, S Flare, and you can use that in other dApps as well to go get additional rewards. So obviously, this is going to be more for people that are more active. You got to really stay on top of it. And it's like, for me, I'm more like a set it and forget it, and I go in and check it, a few times a week, what's going on. Uh, I don't have time to get in a bunch of different things, but if you have the time to do that, um, that'd be something you probably want to take a look at. So obviously, there's a lot more dApps on there to go on there, but depending on how much each one's getting usage and which dApps have more emissions are being used. The ones that have the higher usage and more emissions are going to get more of the R flare awarded to them that'll be doled out to their users. So I'm going to take a look here on how it's distributed. So allocations, the protocols are notified of the upcoming allocation for the start of each month, and then each one of them set their own criteria for the reward distributions for all their users. So the committee favors strategies that incentivize participation, which obviously Flare is big on trying to get more participation in the network and the ecosystem, and then it's automatically ran by a script, so it's automated. So unclaimed, just like with your normal Flare, if you don't claim it after your rewards, it gets burned. And same thing with the undistributed amount. The committee reserves the right to reclaim it for future allocation or burn, which I imagine they probably just burn it like they do with everything else. So they're pretty straightforward about all that stuff. So the question here with this is, though, so we got Rat Flare, we got Stake Flare, and all the different rewards we already have already. So how is Reward Flare, R Flare different from Rat Flare, just regular Flare, and Flare airdrops and staking delegating rewards? So it goes beyond just rewarding participants. We've talked about it already in several of the sections already. It's about incentivizing the usage and not necessarily integration, but the adoptability of users into the different dApps. So there's a majority of wallet holders of Flare that are just going to hold it, wrap it, and stake it, and not do anything else with it. It brings incentives to explore the different dApps in the ecosystem for more use on the network. The more use you get on the network, not just users, but usage overall, brings more value to the network. And then the larger, and if anybody's familiar with DeFi Divi, Matthew, he's awesome, where he's talked about some of his videos, where the more users and the more usage of a network gets, the more value it generates, and of course the price is going to follow it. So eventually, I mean, their sole goal here is not just to elevate the price, but as a Flare holder, that's what we're all interested in, right? So obviously, it mentions how this directly supports F assets, XRP way further along, the BTC getting tested on that. Still an issue with low amounts of collateral available from agents um, to mint and redeem, but it's still working. XRP is going really well. Bitcoin had a little bit of struggles, but I'm been able to mint and redeem with that. But it's going well. So real interesting. Tell me about what you guys experienced. Have you guys been into the DApp systems and use any of these other dApps that Floor has going, or are you just staking and delegating? Let me know. Um, it's real interesting. A couple tools just always be reminded of. The Flare metrics when you're going to go stake. Let's see what the providers. Um, right here, the provider list. So always go back and see what you're getting on the reward rates, and always want to go back and check it. And then the other thing too is the staking portal. You connect your wallet and go see on there. You can vote, and then you can also see what's available for what you've earned. So what do you guys think? It's still sitting about 1.5 cents, like it has been for the past month and a half. Uh, Building a pretty solid base, and if we get through September, which is typically a red month for crypto, especially Bitcoin, where everything follows Bitcoin, we can look for stuff to start taking off in October. Cross our fingers to see what happens. Let me know what you guys think. Like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.